Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am honored and so excited to be joined by Julie Oliver-Touchstone. How you doing today, Julie?
I'm doing great. Thank you for letting me be here.
Oh man, I've been excited about this for so long. For those of you that don't know Julie, she played the mother in one of my favorite, absolute favorite new horror films, The Dark and the Wicked, which you can stream now on Shudder if you haven't watched it yet. And just a little sidebar, this is not lip service. Check my social media for the last year and a half. You'll see how much I talked about The Dark and the Wicked. I absolutely adore this film. But she also has many upcoming projects, including The Pilgrim and Wash Me in the River with Robert De Niro. Like, how amazing is that? You get to work with Robert De Niro. Also, you may recognize her from the TV show Preacher. She was a stand-in on that as well. But before we talk about the film stuff, there's something else I want to bring up real quick. You could also make the argument that Julie is a rock star because she is a geologist on top of all the other things that she does. So we're going to go down the line here a little bit, Julie. First off, The Dark and the Wicked. Without spoiling too much for the viewers that haven't seen it yet, what was it like filming such an incredibly scary movie?
It was wonderful. It was just wonderful. And the people on this project and the intimacy, because we were at his parents' goat farm outside of Granbury, Texas. And the room that Michael's in the movie, that's not the main house, it's in Jason's house, but that's where Brian stayed, is what I was told. Brian is just an amazing guy. He makes you feel like, when he's talking to you, like you are the most interesting thing in the room. And the fact that I was the person with the least experience on this set, and he treated me like Marin, like Michael, like everybody else, and actually let me give a couple of suggestions and took them. I mean, they're tiny, but to have someone validate you like that is pretty cool. So it wasn't scary. It was wonderful. Now, what I did not tell you, I thought you might think is fun, is how do I say this? I was born a witch. I'm a sensitive, and everyone in my family, even though we're all professionals, like my brother's a doctor, but he sees dead people. My sister is a lawyer, but she sees auras, and I can feel energy. And I'm a geologist. And so what I'll tell you is there was a presence in Michael's room. And at first it didn't like me. And then one day when everybody was off and I was waiting, I started to rehearse one of the barn scenes, and I had to be scared. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna rehearse with the ghost. So I rehearsed with the ghost, and it was awesome. And it was funny because after that, the ghost was like, okay, she's okay.
Yeah.
It felt like it was really protective of Brian, but nothing else really scary happened except for, according to some of the crew, the phone on the wall where I told you not to come.
Mm-hmm.
The phone kept jumping off the wall.
That's insane. And like I said, this movie, I watched this movie, I think it was between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, and I was genuinely scared. And I don't get scared of movies very often, but a little sidebar on that, my mother had passed away recently, right before I had watched the film. And so I think a little bit of that kind of played into how much I got really into the film, and my absolute hatred for cutting vegetables also, I think, played a part in why I wasn't such a huge fan.
I'm not laughing about it. Yes, yes. And my best acting is I really can't cook. So if I'm pretending to cook, that's my Oscar right there.
And it's funny you said that he makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. I can tell you right now, Julie, just talking to you in the conversations we've had before the interview through text, I can see why. You are an amazing person, not just because of the actress that you are or the scientist that you are, but you're kind and you are very caring and generous with every conversation that we've had. So the reason I bring that up, guys, because I've had the pleasure of becoming friends with Julie. You can also follow her on social media because I have all the links right down here in the description. So make sure you're throwing her a follow. She's amazing. She's got some beautiful raccoons that come and visit her every night. You can check them out as well. So now I got to talk about this real quick. Wash Me in the River with Robert De Niro. I'm so proud of you. That is so awesome. I know that there's probably a lot of NDAs because the movie's not due to drop until 2022, but is there anything that you can tell us about the movie that won't get you in any trouble?
Yes, absolutely. Because I mean, I'm on the IMDb, but it doesn't show the character name or anything like that. But and this is a really fascinating thing that happened. So Aaron Steele Nicholson was the first AD for The Dark and the Wicked, And I was hospitalized with COVID over Christmas and New Year's, and it was pretty severe. I got a trial drug that saved my life. I
Okay,
had
that's
COVID,
good.
yeah, I had COVID pneumonia, and I was going into the cytokine storm, just where your immune system turns against you.
Hmm.
And it was going south fast. I wasn't yet intubated, and they gave me this trial drug, and within 48 hours, they took me off oxygen. I was fine. I was
Good.
recovering, but I was still like death warmed over.
Mhm.
And I got out of the hospital on a Sunday, the 3rd, and on Wednesday, the 6th, I got a text from Aaron going, "Hey, Julie, Happy New Year. I haven't talked to you in forever. Hey, crazy question. Could I submit you to my director to do the scene with Robert De Niro?" And I went, "I guess miracles are my bag now, because I should have been dead." Okay. And the best thing is, I was supposed to look like I had one foot in the grave. And I went, "I just had one foot in the grave.
I can play that perfectly right now.
I got that. That's awesome." And they flew me to Puerto Rico, first class. I've never flown first class. That was really cool. And Mr. De Niro, the scene I was in, there was just 2 other people, and he greeted me and he nodded, he acknowledged and connected. And he had a soliloquy before my scene with him, and I got to watch him work. And it was so tickled to learn that even Robert De Niro gets better with practice. We all have,
Yeah,
we all have to do our work, you know. Even Robert
yeah.
De Niro. And
And
there's a scene where he kisses me on the head, and I told you I'm a sensitive to
mhm,
energy, and I could actually feel love in my body from that kiss on the head. And I contacted Michael Abbott, that plays Michael, and I
yeah,
said, I'm hesitant. I want you to think I'm crazy. But the only ever time this has ever happened to me was when you were with me at the sink, and you put your hands on my shoulder, and I felt the familial love go through my body. He went, "Oh, that's cool." I thought, "Oh, good. He didn't think I'm nuts." And go, "Please stay away from me. Never contact me." And he said, "Funny thing, I'm about to go to Oklahoma to be in a movie with Robert De Niro." So uh, Killers of the Flower Moon. It's going to be amazing. Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro. You might see on Michael's page him with Brendan Fraser
Oh,
at,
nice.
at the house where they shot The Outsiders. So anyway, and by the way, I will talk too much. You stop me.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm loving this.
So it was quite a miracle, and I think that if I hadn't nearly died and been saved, I wouldn't have been able to handle doing a scene with Robert De Niro. I was like, sure,
Right.
sure.
Well, that's royalty almost when it comes to acting. I mean, I grew
Oh,
up watching him in Casino, Goodfellas, these movies that I absolutely adore. And even
yeah,
now, he's still just the amazing actor. He can do anything.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you even watch him back in Cape Fear and how scary he was in Cape Fear.
Hmm.
And then to watch Robert, everything he does is just absolutely phenomenal. So, now, another thing I want to touch on real quick before we get into the reason why you're here, you are also a scientist. You are a geologist.
And
How do you juggle being a scientist with being an actor and all the things that come in between? Because from what I've heard, being a scientist is not something everybody can do. It seems like it's pretty hard work. So, how are you able to juggle what you do as a geologist and an actor?
we'll see. Now, I look at people that can deal with money as magicians, because I'm terrible with money. So for me, science is like it's fun. I actually enjoyed taking the SATs, and I was in the Alpha Theta, the honorary math club in high school. And I really enjoy film acting because it is very much left, right, brain. Because
Right.
on stage, you're emoting, you're feeling, but very loud. I like the intimacy of film. But like if I hug someone, I have to remember to use my left arm every time. I have to think about it. And there was even a moment in The Dark and the Wicked, in the barn scene, the naked part, and I had to come up on Michael, but he's tall. And they were like, "How are we gonna get up there?" I go, "Oh, look, I'll put my arm over here. I'm gonna pull myself on this and bring me up like that straight to him." So, it's like it's problem solving all the time. So, but the magic of bringing it in, and like in the carrot cutting scene, how to maintain that and not become overwhelmed by it and then just lose it and just sort of like figured it out, which by the way, the my girls helped me, the costume mistress, the hair and makeup ladies, they were just amazing. Both in the barn scene, it was 33 degrees out, okay?
And you're a Texas lady.
And I'm a Texas lady. So, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Michigan. It was a balmy 33 degrees out. So there's a joke about the Texan cowboy that moves to Montana and he's out and he freezes to death and they're going to cremate him and they check in. He's in the crematorium and they check in and he yells, "Hey, I was just getting warm. Shut that door." So yes,
So that,
33 degrees is death to a Texan. Okay, just get that.
right. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Yes.
One last question I have for you before we talk about your first horror movie. Your necklace. It is a beautiful necklace. What can you tell me a little bit about that? Because people that have seen The Dark and the Wicked, that may look a little familiar. So is there a little bit of a backstory behind the necklace?
This is to represent the tree that's on the poster from The Dark and the Wicked. And my friend Sherry Rosas made it for me. She beaded dragon designs. She wraps rocks. And so she combined my love of rocks and the Dark and the Wicked. And limited funds, so not everybody got one, but she made one for every single female on the project. So
that is so incredible. Tell her I said thank you because that is beautiful. That is a beautiful necklace, and I'm so glad that we got to share that.
Thank you for letting me share her gift.
Yeah, no problem. I'm so honored because it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love the colors on it as well. So we know what you got coming up in the future with Wash Me in the River and the Pilgrim, and we know what you've been doing now. But now, Julie, I want to take it back to the past and talk about the whole reason we're here. Your first horror movie, and the first horror movie that you watched and really affected you was.
Well, and we talked about this, but I'm gonna do it. I should have talked to you, but I'm gonna do this real quick. So my first movies were when I would go to stay with my father's mother. Oh, she was a horrible woman. She's a great source for dramatic acting. Yes, I can't say the word, but anyway, she really didn't care for us and female kids. She had no use for girls. They're no use to you. Men can get you power, women can't. So she would send us off to this local theater, and I saw The Mummy and Frankenstein and The Werewolf and Dracula and Bela Lugosi, all those great films. But then there was two, and the one quick one was in third grade, I think it was. And my mother told me, you got to listen to your mother. When your mother tells you not to come, don't come. We learned that from The Dark and the Wicked, right?
Yeah. So, I told you not to come.
Told you not to come. Anyway, she told me not to watch. She was watching on PBS, The Lord of the Flies, which, by the way, did you know as a horror film that Beelzebub translates to The Lord of the Flies?
I did not.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm. And anyway, so they're on the island and it's these boys abandoned if you haven't read it, but please read it. And also if you watch the movie, watch the old black and white. Don't you bother with that color version. It's not the same thing. But as the children become more and more cruel, and the scene that just chilled me was we're sharpening a stick on two ends and they killed like a piggy little boy with the glasses and put his head on the spike. And I had nightmares for 2 years and I obeyed my mother mostly from then on. But the one I told you about, because to me, the horror films that mean something are the ones that really impact you.
Yeah.
I can't explain to you, maybe you have your equivalent, but I can't explain to you the impact that The Exorcist had on me and my brother and everybody that saw it. And so I was still in high school. My brother was in college, but he was nearby college.
Yeah.
He came home and spent the night at home because he was so terrified. And also that night, so we had a nice 2-story house with chimney and all this stuff and a big attic.
Yeah.
Guess what got in the attic that night? It was squirrel, but it sounds like rats, which is how it all begins.
Yeah.
And you said I could tell anything I wanted to. Okay, don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. Especially if you're going to go see The Exorcist. So I was a really good little girl until my senior year, and I tried so hard to please daddy, and wasn't going to happen. I went, muck it. I'm going to do the crimes if I do the time. So I did all the things, mostly just hallucinogens and some weed.
Yeah.
And I smoked hashish before going to see The Exorcist.
Oh my gosh. That's tempting the devil right there.
Yeah, it is. And I will never forget that moment when the man behind me screamed and leaned forward and grabbed the back of my seat. And I think I shot about 30 feet in the air.
Rough estimate.
Roughly, and did not sleep well the rest of my life. I just never slept again. So it was also real, and like I said, I have some little witchy things going on with me, so I've actually had some experiences. So there was no it might be real. It was, yeah, this can happen. When I was young, the first thing that happened to me, I was on my granddad's farm, and I was taking a nap, and I saw 3 kittens walk across the white ceiling, and my grandmother came and woke me up and said, wake up, Thomasina's having her kittens. And we got up, and the kit had her kittens, and she had 3 kittens, and they were born in the order of those 3 colors. But there was a 4th one that it didn't live. And I thought that I was a witch and that I had killed that kitten. So, I mean, I was quite traumatized. And I was raised in the church. So thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Actually, is thou shalt not suffer a witch who is not of the faith to live. So, hey, all you.
So you're safe.
Okay.
So you bring up The Exorcist because you were talking about listening to mom and what mom says. The Exorcist is, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, sorry for repeat viewers. The Exorcist is the only film my mother ever shut off halfway through and said, this is too scary, we're not going to watch it. And so it always had that stigma around it to me. And so I had to finish it. And when I finished it, I was like, oh, she was so right. I didn't have to watch that. Like, it terrified me. I'm 35.
35. So it held up because I haven't gone back to watch it.
Yes. I mean, I've said this numerous times. While The Exorcist is not my favorite horror movie, I think it's the scariest horror movie I've ever seen. And real quick, I'll tell you why. Number one, when I was a little boy, the thought of a demon entering a child scared me. Like, that was totally terrifying to me as a little boy. As the father of 2 beautiful little girls, the thought of a demon entering my daughters absolutely terrifies me. And the helplessness that I would feel. We always talk about the scene in the film where Reagan is possessed by Pazuzu, and yet help me comes up on her stomach. So you know that little girl is still in there and she's just begging for help. And as a father, the only job that I have is to make sure that you're okay.
Yeah.
And I can't do anything to help you right now. So watching this as a child, it absolutely devastated me. Watching this as a father, it absolutely devastated me for 2 completely different reasons. So that's why, to me, The Exorcist really holds up as the scariest movie I've ever seen, because through 2 different watchings, I was absolutely terrified for 2 different reasons.
Yeah.
So that's why, to me, The Exorcist will always be the one that, it's absolutely terrifying to me.
I never thought about what it'd be like to be a parent to watch that. It never occurred to me. Bringing it into the dark and the wicked, I actually consulted a friend of mine who is a pinch hitter exorcist for Vatican II. And
awesome.
Yeah, no, seriously. He's actually helped my friend get rid of a little deity, and he helped me get rid of one in my house. We talked about evil and possession and stuff like that, and he said the coolest, and I don't know what your faith or not faith is. I kind of came in backwards, going with the scary stuff, and then going, if I believe in that, then maybe the other stuff works too. So anyway, he said the cruelest thing for him in his faith about the devil is that it's not fair. It takes advantage of someone who's vulnerable. So the mother is grieving, and in her grief, he takes advantage. He comes in. And if you talk to Father Michael Zacks, he'll say, well, what if he's just an alien that's hungry? Maybe he's just nothing. I'm going, no, it's the devil. Shut up. Shut up. But yeah,
it's funny. I was going to draw the comparisons there between The Exorcist and The Dark and the Wicked. Now, I'm not saying The Dark and the Wicked copied The Exorcist. The Dark and the Wicked is its own story. It's its own tale, but it does have that possession type, influence on it. And you even have the preacher, which that's another scene that just blew me away. The phone call afterwards is just so incredible. The incredible writing of this film to connect every single dot as you're watching it. You don't get left wondering for, you're connecting these dots the whole time you're watching this film. And to have this play out, like I got goosebumps right now talking about it. Like,
so maybe you can tell me what you think. Okay, Brian doesn't tell us everything. He likes a lot of ambiguity, and there's some podcasts with Michael and I think Marin. Michael's done more podcasts, and they said that Brian gave you a lot of freedom, but he said he told him, says, "I'm not going to tell you what's going on. You do the relationships, but there's blood in the water. There's something off and something going wrong there." So, so I don't know what. So I'm a little confused by the priest's phone call, and I'm still trying to figure it out. Will you tell me what you think?
The way that if you haven't seen the movie, guys, pause this, go watch the movie, and come back, because one, you got to watch this movie, and you don't have to watch this movie for Ken, Sledge, me. You don't have to watch this movie for Julie. You have to watch this movie for you.
Yeah.
Like, you're missing out if you haven't seen it. But the way that I interpreted that scene is he had never been there. When he gets that phone call and she's like, and he starts talking about his daughter, why would you say that name? I think that the whole thing was just an apparition, not an apparition, but I think it was some sort of, we're trying to keep you here. We're trying to comfort you and keep you here so you don't leave. Because that preacher's job essentially is to try to talk to them. And they've said, my mother was not a church goer. My mother was not a godly person. And yet they found all the crucifixes with her when she went to the morgue. So I think that this whole thing was a way to keep her here so they could feed on her. And now it's a way to keep the children here so it can feed on them. That's just my interpretation. Now, this is not gospel. What I'm saying is not fact, but my interpretation of it is this is a spirit that is here to not only keep the mother here, but to keep the children here once they've came here. And again, not gospel, but whenever you see a father, a preacher, a pastor, you feel comfort. I grew up in the church as well. Me and the church are not on the best of terms, but me and Jesus Christ are close. I talk to Jesus Christ every day.
We're in the same place, you and I.
Yeah. I'm just not an organized religion person. To me, church is a gathering of people to talk about the gospel, not a building where the gospel is taught. So me and you could have church by talking about the gospel together. So
I'm into disorganized religion. I'm a member of the Church of the Subgenius. Praise Bob. Sorry.
But what I was saying is, whenever you see, especially someone that grew up in the church, when you see a pastor, a father, you're anything, that's a comfort. I'm safe now. And so he comes as him because it's comforting. I'm a vision of safety to you. Why wouldn't you listen to me? Why wouldn't you stay? Even, that's the way that I've always interpreted that whole part of the film. I could be way off base. I could be way wrong. Well, there was one time in the 90s I was wrong, so I'm sure it could happen again. But
I took a class in aesthetics, and I remember one of the essays by Stravinsky, the musician. He said that, because the topic was, what is art? When is it art? Is it when it's in a museum? Is it this? And Stravinsky's feeling was, it's not art until you experience it. So whatever your experience of it is, that's the piece of art that it is. So that's just a way to throw in my education, so my mom will get paid for it.
No, I agree. And that's honestly, that's the best thing about film is you can interpret it. Me and you could watch the exact same film, have two 100% different interpretations, but it could still mean the world to both of us. And that's what I love about this. There's no black and white. This is it, especially with The Dark and the Wicked. There's plenty of room for, like you said, for ambiguity, if you to take this movie however you want to take it. And that's what I love about the film. I think it's a perfect film. I adored this film on first watch. I adored it on 27th watch. I think that this is a great film, and I talk about it all the time. And again, I'm not just doing this because you were here. Everybody, go on Twitter, search for Ken Sledge, The Dark and the Wicked, and watch how much I've talked about this movie. It's incredible.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it, because it was such a powerful experience for me. I don't have, I wish I'd written down how I felt when I finished, and when I came home, I just went in, not into despair. It's like I had such a sense of loss. It was, and I don't know why. Some say it's because it was an intimate, it was a small crew, small cast, you're all together, you're out there. And by the way, yeah, the farm at night is pretty freaking scary. And, it didn't take a lot to look scared. I mean, they cut one of my pieces in the farm, but at one point I had one of the crew people just go out in the distance, because I'm on your side. All I could see was just this white face hovering, and it's like you start listening to the sounds, and he's just like, "There's nobody to come help us. We're really far out here." So yeah, it is. It can get scary.
Oh, I bet. And even though you're in an open area, there's still that feeling of claustrophobia when you're watching this movie, because
The cinematography is just phenomenal. Tristan Nyby, I just call him Tristan. I never checked to make sure I pronounced his last name right. He's got a heritage. His dad was well known, but he won best cinematographer in Sitges, the Sitges competition.
Cool.
And Rin got nominated for best actress in that.
Yeah, it's, again, you watch this movie, and every time I watch this movie, I pick up something different. So,
Tom Nowicki, Charlie. I read a thing about how you talk about the comfort, the father, the priest, and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So in Stephen King's The Shining, you always have the character that's outside, mm-hmm. and that character can either be a comfort, or it can let you know, oh, nobody's safe. So, yeah. So in The Shining, what's his name that tells the little boy that
he calls him Doc. What is his name?
Yeah, but the type of the character. They're warm. They're outside. Yeah. So Charlie kind of was that kind of character. He's warm. He's safe. I love the. I wish there'd been more of his scenes, but I think the editing was just brilliant on this.
Oh yeah.
It didn't hurt my feelings whatsoever. The things that got cut, it's like, no, it made it better. It's really good.
Right.
But when Charlie's gone, and that's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's safe.
and that's how you feel in this movie. Nobody is safe ever. So, real quick though, I want to go back to The Exorcist for a second. We talk about a scene that has a movie that has so many influential scenes in it. Which scene from The Exorcist would you say affected you the most?
I don't know why, but the floating bed. I don't know what got to me about that, but it did. And I mean, of course, the writing on her stomach, like it affected you, but differently, because I don't have a kid. And then this, just to be cliche, the green pea soup and the head turning around. I mean, who doesn't love the head turning around? That's just good. I mean, just the visuals, and the doom of the older priest. That like,
yeah.
And then her walking down, the crab walk down the stairs. But yeah, no, the floating bed, for some reason, that got me.
So obviously with The Exorcist being a franchise, I know this sounds silly because I know everybody always says the first one. My personal isn't, but you have The Exorcist, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, The Exorcist 3, and then you have the last two ones, the beginning, I think it was, and then there was another one. So it's a 5-film franchise now.
I watched
Is the first one your favorite in that franchise?
Just because of the impact. But I mean, there was some stuff about the next ones that really had a great deal of value. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated them very much. I didn't feel like they were a cheap knockoff. Did you?
I think The Exorcist 3 is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
I think The Exorcist is the scariest, but I will always hold the torch of The Exorcist 3 is the better made film. And I think, just my opinion, I grew up more with slasher films, and The Exorcist to me is more of a supernatural slasher. It has more of those slasher elements to it, with the Gemini killer and Brad Dourif's amazing performance as the Gemini killer. And you got the scene where obviously the best jump scare of all time, with the shears coming out, and then it goes right to the head of Jesus being cut off. Like, there's so much about The Exorcist 3 that I absolutely adore. So I have to say that's my favorite in the franchise. but I'll die on the hill of The Exorcist is the scariest movie ever
Well,
made.
also, I did not smoke hashish for the other one. So.
You didn't get the whole experience then.
No. No, I mean, I guess it was the age, my age, and also there had been nothing like that when that came out. There was nothing like that. It was just a whole new experience. So it's hard for me to take it out of context. I mean, so yeah,
right.
Free was it.
Well, and I've always said if I could go back
I'm
in
fond
time.
of psychological. I'm fond of suspense and stuff. You've heard the term suspension of disbelief, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I have none. I mean, it's all gone. When I'm watching a movie, it's really happening, and it's really happening to me. I went to see Sid and Nancy with Gary Oldman, and it was so well done. I went home and I went, thank God I cleaned my apartment. I'm not Nancy. I'm okay.
Right.
So I have to be careful what I watch, and I actually haven't watched The Strangers yet because I'm a chicken shit.
Ooh.
I did watch The Monster, but I had to watch it with my friend who told me when to close my eyes.
Yeah.
And I was just smitten with Ella Valentine. She was amazing. And I thought it's so wonderful. I love directors that have loyalty to their cast. And the fact that he flew Ella down from Canada for that one scene.
Yeah. Well, you talk about The Strangers and how you've yet to see The Strangers. I'll tell you this, and I mean this with all my heart, Julie. I said The Exorcist is the scariest movie ever made, but when it comes to scenes, there's a scene in The Strangers, and I think it's the scariest dialogue I've ever heard. You know, Liv Tyler's on the floor, she's crying, she's like, "Why? Why us?" And the person's like, "Because you were home." Like that's all it took. You know,
the line by itself.
Yeah, that's evil. Like that right there is so evil. Yeah. So we talked about, Julie, your first horror movie being The Exorcist and how much that movie affected you. But now my little buddy here, Ghostface, I'm going to go scream on you. What's your favorite scary movie, Julie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Well, like I said, I have complete suspension of disbelief. I can't watch a lot of slasher films. I'm too scared. Oh, Brian gave me absolution. He has a big football player friend that's never seen The Stranger, one of his old best friends from school and stuff. He said, nah, he laughed. It's cool. Oh, by the way, Marin, who's a fabulous horror movie actor, can't watch horror movies. I think, okay, so they were up at Toronto and they had a little Q&A. And I think Marin said that she quit watching after 15 minutes, which I really hope is my finger scene.
Right.
I would like to be the one that calls
the reason.
Yeah. Oh, that scene was so much fun, by the way. Oh, I mean, it was horrible, but it was fun. But so you're not. I really like is it The Haunting? It's just The Haunting with Julie Harris. The old black and white. It just has so much. It just sucks me in. It's like even the death is like.
You're talking about the one where they all go to the same house,
and also,
right?
my favorite romance horror film is The Candyman.
Candyman, absolutely.
And I have to add, okay, I'm a big nerd. I'm a sci-fi geek nerd and Buffy the Vampire Slayer nerd. And I used to go to cons, and I went to one that had Tony Todd as a guest, and he was hanging out in the little bar area, and Tony Todd sold my French fries. That's my favorite movie star moments. He's an awesome guy, and he told me it was originally written as a love story, but because it was considered too controversial for a white woman and a black man, that they pulled it back. So, but I will tell you the horror movie that undid me was Nightmare on Elm Street. And I have really vivid dreams, and I can actually interact in my dreams sometimes. And I was dating an engineer at A&M, and he was like, if you ever get scared at night, call me. And I go, I am not an idiot. I am not a child. I'm not going to call you in the middle of the night because I'm scared. That's ridiculous. So I had this nightmare, and I do this thing in my dreams where I swing my arm to wake myself up. And so I did it. And then I was in another nightmare. And I slung my arm, and I was in another nightmare. This happened about 6 times. And I finally wake up, and I go outside, and I breathe the air, and I'm so relieved to be awake. And I went, oh shit, this isn't my street. And it was Freddie. And Freddie was coming at me, and I'm like, for some reason he was weakened. So And I was going, oh, it's just a dream. He can't get me. Oh no, it's a dream. This is when he can get me. And so in the dream, I throw my arm around him. I'm trying to hold him down because he's got the things and I'm holding him, but then I'm trying to sling my arm, but I'm having to hold it. And I finally woke up for real. And I called my boyfriend. And I said, and there's monsters and I'm scared and I'm pretty sure there's monsters under my bed. And he's an engineer. So he goes, well, it's probably a micro-milli monster. And I'm going, wait, excuse me, I'm being scared here. What are you, he goes, well, you have a waterbed. I'm thinking that's about 3,500 PSI. So it's got to be really micro-milli. I went, I'm being scared here. Don't be logical. So,
no logic right now.
So Freddie is the one that got into my nightmares. And and I love The Fly and I love Alien. I mean, I am just smitten with Alien. I got to meet Sigourney Weaver at the Dallas Shakespeare Festival at a party I got invited to, and I was such an idiot. I come up because I think I'm being funny. I wasn't. And I go, oh, Miss Weaver, I really admire someone that can act with like an alien like that. It's really gotta be hard. She just kind of went, oh God. But I wasn't the only one spitting. So the Dallas Shakespeare Festival, I made a friend and do you know who Jim Beaver is on Supernatural? He plays Bobby on Supernatural. But he was smitten with Sigourney Weaver as well. He named his cat Sigourney Beaver.
That's awesome.
But anyway,
it's
so
cool to be able to meet these people that mean so much. I mean, Alien, I got the egg pod right here.
Yeah, so, yeah. Oh, that's another hint. Also, don't do drugs. Okay, so when I was in college, and we were very responsible. We always had acid sitters and took vitamins beforehand. And so, but the most highly sought after sitters were those who would interact with you. And there's a thing that one friend would do. They would wait and you're like messed up and they would go, let me see if I can do this.
No.
And then you thought, because anyway, don't wait, I'll bring it around to a life lesson. One of the reasons I did do all this stuff is because I was suicidally depressed. And I was later diagnosed as clinically depressed. And it was quite a journey getting out of it. And I really wasn't 27 until I was free from severe anxiety, severe depression. And so one of the things I hope that helped me out was movies. And by the way, Silence of the Lambs, maybe my top. I don't even think it was a horror film.
Oh, I totally think it's a horror film. I totally believe that's a horror film. I mean, the last act itself, when you got the guy strung up in the jail cell, like,
oh, it's just magnificent. But oddly enough, it helped me. I have recurring depression. So for those of you out there with depression, they're young. It sometimes recurs. Don't freak out. You're not going back down the rabbit hole. And you'll get through it. Just keep going on. But Silence of the Lambs, for one reason or another, it was like it took me right into hell and right back out the other side. I went, okay. It made me feel better. But other things, other people grieving for me through films helped me a lot. Music, Joni Mitchell's Blue, I played way too many times. So when I did this scene with the fingers and all of it, I wanted to help other people grieve. And because you can serve no matter what you're doing. And so I didn't know the trope. I didn't know it was a trope. I didn't know the finger cutting things was. And so I tried to think of what pain would be so great, what emotional pain is so great that physically harming yourself would be a relief. And I'm gonna take a minute. My friend lost her son. He was 4 years old. And Harrison was his name. And it was right before Thanksgiving, and he got the flu, 2 varieties. And my friend Amanda, I knew she was really good at first aid. She did everything. They had to life flight him in to Denver, and he lost. His throat closed up, and 3 days later they pulled the plug, and he donated 7 organs. He saved 7 kids. So instead of action, I asked Brian if he would please say, Harrison can't breathe. And he was so gentle and he was so kind and he helped me hold that space. So that William Boodle and Brian edited it so beautifully that whether you knew it or not, there's real grief there. And Harrison actually appeared to me on the set after the scenes, and my grandmother appeared and took him by the hand and took him up the walkway to the farm. It was always one of the safest places in the world for me. And so that's with Amanda's permission to tell you that. And also when I told her about it, I was afraid to tell her that I'd say Harrison can't breathe. And she said, like, you can hurt me anymore.
I mean, she's got a point. That I can't say I know what she went through because I don't. Yeah. I don't, and I'm sorry.
And you shan't ever know it. You shan't. I know it. No. But she said, I got to read you something I wrote 3 days before Harrison got the flu. He said, Mommy, what happens when we die? And she said, well, Harrison, we don't really know. We won't know till then. He goes, I want to stop breathing and die. Oh. And she said, Harrison, why would you say that? Oh, never mind. Let's go inside and play. And he had become obsessed with her father who died young. And so she feels he knew and that he was preparing her. And anyway, that may be TMI. I don't know. But for those of you out there who are grieving, that's
what I was just going to say. These type of things show that grief, sadness, sorrow, it happens to all of us, and you're never, ever alone. So if you're out there and you're feeling low and like things aren't going to get better, I promise they will. I can tell you for sure, my DMs on Twitter, Instagram, they're always open. If you're ever feeling so low, like you don't have anybody, hit me up. All my links are down here in the description. Make sure you hit somebody up. And if you want it to be confidential because you're embarrassed, don't be. There are suicide hotlines out there that you can call, and they have professionals that can help you. You don't have to be, if you're so embarrassed that you don't want to talk to somebody, I understand. Make a phone call. That one phone call can change your complete outlook on everything that you looked at. So if you need to make that phone call, don't think down on yourself. I think it's half of Americans have been suicidal, or it's like 66%, I think, even have been suicidal at one point. So you're not in the minority, and you're not weird, and you're not different, and you're not strange. You're human, and we all go through it. So if you ever need it, we're here.
I'm weird and strange.
In all the best ways.
But yeah, and the other thing is, I would tell my suicidal self is like, you will not believe what happens. You got to hang around because this is real.
So Julie, before I let you go, I want to bounce back to The Exorcist real quick. Something we do at the end of these always is we rank The Exorcist on a skull count. So what we're going to do is rank this movie, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. What we're going to do, though, Julie, is we're not being critics right now. We're not judging it on acting, production, quality, nothing like that. We're judging this movie strictly on how it affected you the first time you watched it. So 0 skulls being not at all, 5 being it affected the hell out of me. What would your ranking of The Exorcist be?
8.
I had a feeling, but you know I got to ask. This has been so much fun, Julie, and I can't tell you how much this has meant to me, and I will definitely stay in contact because conversations with you have become so much fun. I do want to remind everybody else, please make sure you're clicking the links down here in the description. Make sure you're giving Julie a follow on social media. If you haven't checked out The Dark and the Wicked yet, what the hell are you waiting for? If this conversation didn't spark it, nothing's gonna. You need to watch this film. Julie, please don't go anywhere. I have a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror. Stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.